It's happening after days of violent protests, mass arrests, and chaos across Madagascar's capital. The unimaginable has finally happened. President Andry Rajoelina, once seen as the symbol of modern Madagascar, has been overthrown and is now reportedly hiding in a secret location in France for his safety.
Now, Madagascar's presidency released a statement late on Wednesday saying that Rajoelina left the nation between the 11th and the 12th of October after quote-unquote explicit and extremely serious threats were made against his life.
The fearless coup leader, Colonel Michael Randrianirina, despite mounting threats from the African Union and global powers, has officially been sworn in today as Madagascar's new head of state. But as celebrations echo through the streets and tension rises across the region, one question is dividing analysts, citizens, and African leaders alike. Is Madagascar preparing to join the Alliance of Sahel States, the AES, in a bold defiance against Western influence and regional pressure? And if so, what would that mean for Africa's balance of power?
The Secretary General condemns the unconstitutional change of government power in Madagascar and calls for the return to constitutional order and the rule of law.
This is a charge Colonel Michael denies.
A coup is when soldiers enter the presidential palace with weapons. They shoot. There is bloodshed. This is not a coup.
AES has got a very strong position. No unconstitutional changes of government by the military. It's not accepted. As it is, it looks like a coup. Like it has all the hallmarks of a coup. Although it's a public affairs thing, it's done by the public, but the interference of the military makes it to look like indeed it's a coup.
Madagascar, an island of lush rainforests, rare wildlife, and decades of political promise, but also one haunted by chronic instability, deep poverty, and broken leadership. Today, it stands at a defining crossroads, a nation reborn through revolt, or repeating the same story of power and betrayal. The question now is, will this coup spark a new beginning for Madagascar, or draw it deeper into Africa's growing divide between sovereignty and submission? Welcome to Win African, where we uncover Africa's most powerful stories, one nation at a time. It all started as a wave of youth-led protests, dubbed Gen Z Madagascar, demanding clean water, stable electricity, and an end to corruption.
We're just asking for our rights. We're asking for water and electricity. We're asking for our fundamental rights, that's all.
The people had had enough. Bitter shortages and failing services lit the fuse. President Andry Rajoelina attempted to respond, dismissing his cabinet, promising reforms, but the anger only grew.
Therefore, in accordance with Article 54 of the Constitution, I have today taken the decision to dismiss the Prime Minister and dissolve his government.
Then came the turning point. CAPSAT, an elite military unit under Colonel Michael Randrianirina, broke ranks with the government. They aligned with the protesters. Days later, Rajoelina fled the country. Parliament impeached him. The courts ratified the new reality. Today, Colonel Michael Randrianirina was officially sworn in as the President of the Republic of Madagascar, a military ruler assuming control after a people's uprising and a rapid political collapse. He declared a transition period of 18 to 24 months before new elections.
We had to take the responsibility because there is no president anymore, and this became a dying country. We had to take that responsibility because we are citizens, and we had a duty to do that as citizens and as somebody who loves his homeland.
Most government institutions have been dissolved, except the National Assembly. The African Union has suspended Madagascar. The United Nations has condemned the takeover. Many in the international community are asking, when and will legitimate constitutional rule return?
There have been attempted coups in the past and people have been imprisoned for that. So that's always a possibility. But I don't think that anybody saw it coming as a direct and such an immediate result of the Gen Z protests.
The African Union suspended Madagascar, calling for an immediate return to constitutional order. It's warned of sanctions against those responsible if civilian rule isn't restored.
What is illegal here? We had an order from the High Constitutional Court. We didn't force the court. The court is conscious that it has to make a decision to calm the situation down. According to the decree published by the court, I am the one who will take the place of the president with my friends.
As the world watches Madagascar's sudden political shift, attention is now turning toward a rising alliance that's quietly reshaping Africa's geopolitical map. The AES, the Alliance of Sahel States, formed in 2023 by 3 military-led nations, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. The AES was more than a partnership. It was a declaration of independence, a direct challenge to Western dominance, to regional institutions like ECOWAS, and to a world order that many in the Sahel believed had failed them. These nations, once cornerstones of French influence in West Africa, had turned their backs on Paris, expelled French troops, and accused Western powers of hypocrisy and exploitation. In their place, they chose sovereignty, a promise to stand on their own feet, control their resources, and build a future free from external manipulation. But the AES is not just a political statement. It's a movement, a new vision of African unity, born from defiance rather than diplomacy. The Confederation now plans a joint defense pact, an economic framework, and even a shared currency. Together, they've created what they call the Alliance for Survival. And as Madagascar's new military leader consolidates power, whispers have begun to spread. Could this island nation, thousands of kilometers away in the Indian Ocean, become the AES's first expansion beyond the Sahel? For Colonel Randrianirina, joining such an alliance could be more than symbolic. It could be strategic. The AES represents strength, solidarity, and resistance to external pressure, something Madagascar now desperately needs as it faces diplomatic isolation from the African Union and economic threats from Western donors. And for the AES, expanding toward the east coast of Africa into the Indian Ocean would be a massive geopolitical win. It would connect the Sahel to vital trade routes, new energy corridors, and maritime access stretching toward Asia. Let's pause for a second. If you've watched this video up to this point, or you're still tuned in, it means you truly care about the message and support Africa's growth. Please take a moment to subscribe and follow our YouTube community. It shows that you appreciate the effort behind this content and want to see more stories that matter. Let's continue. Analysts warn that such a move could also deepen the global competition for influence on African soil. The West fears it could strengthen Moscow's or Beijing's reach across the continent. Madagascar's location, close to key shipping lanes and mineral-rich waters, makes it a valuable prize for any power bloc. If the AES expands here, it could shift Africa's center of gravity from the West African desert to the Indian Ocean, creating a new axis of influence stretching from Bamako to Antananarivo. Still, not everyone sees it as progress. Critics argue that joining the AES would isolate Madagascar further, invite sanctions, and deepen its economic struggles. They point out that the AES states themselves are facing insurgencies, food crises, and diplomatic blockades. But supporters say this is exactly why Madagascar should join. to unite with nations that understand struggle, resilience, and the price of sovereignty. On social media, the idea of Madagascar joining the AES is already trending under hashtags like #NewAfrica and #SovereignAlliance. Young Africans from Niamey to Nairobi see it as a wake-up call that the age of Western-backed governments is fading and a new generation of African nations is beginning to stand up together. No official statement has been made, and the idea remains speculation for now. But in African politics, speculation is often the seed of transformation. And if Madagascar truly aligns with the AES, it wouldn't just mark a shift in policy. It would signal the birth of a new African era. At first glance, Madagascar's crisis might seem like just another African power struggle, another coup in a faraway land. But beneath the surface lies something much deeper. This isn't just about politics, it's about survival. For years, Madagascar has lived on the edge of collapse. Rolling blackouts plunge cities into darkness for hours. Water shortages leave families struggling to survive. And inflation has stripped away the little hope people once had.
Under-18s make up more than 50% of the Malagasy population. This unusually high proportion of young people, added to the island's deteriorating economy, has led to more children living in the streets than ever.
To the outside world, these are statistics. But to the Malagasy people, they are daily realities. The reason thousands poured into the streets, risking arrest, risking bullets, to demand something better. When the government failed to respond, when promises turned to silence, the people lost faith. And when soldiers stepped in, some saw tyranny, others saw redemption. Now, as the African Union suspends Madagascar and Western donors threaten to cut aid, the question becomes, who truly stands with the Malagasy people? Is the world punishing a country for choosing its own path or protecting democracy from military rule? The answer depends on which side of Africa's great divide you stand on. Across the continent, a new ideological war is taking shape between governments that seek independence from old powers and those that still depend on them for survival. For the AES nations, sovereignty means rejecting influence, no matter the cost. For others, stability means cooperation, even under control. Inside Madagascar, the atmosphere is tense, but hopeful. Some fear military rule will silence freedom. Others believe, finally, a leader has come who listens to the people. But history has taught Africa one painful lesson. Revolutions can start with promises and end in betrayal. Whether Colonel Randrianirina becomes the leader who rebuilds or the ruler who repeats the past, only time will tell. What's clear is this: Madagascar's choice in the coming months could redefine the future of Africa's political landscape. If it turns toward the AES, the continent's balance of power could shift forever. If it turns away, it may once again fall into the same cycle of dependence and despair. This is not just Madagascar's story anymore. It's Africa's story unfolding before our eyes. As the dust settles and the new government takes its first steps, the question now shifts from what happened to what next. 3 possible paths lie ahead, each carrying hope, danger, and a message for the rest of Africa. Path 1. The AES alignment. The first path, and perhaps the boldest, is alignment with the AES. If Madagascar joins the Alliance of Sahel States, it would mark the bloc's first expansion beyond West Africa and send shockwaves across the continent. Such a move would challenge the dominance of ECOWAS and the African Union, institutions long criticized for enforcing Western-backed policies rather than African-driven agendas. But this path won't come without consequences. Western donors could freeze aid, international sanctions could follow, and Madagascar's fragile economy, already on its knees, could collapse further before it stabilizes. Still, too many Africans watching. That might be a small price for true sovereignty. In the end, Madagascar's story is more than just a headline. It's a mirror, a reflection of Africa's ongoing search for identity, justice, and sovereignty. From the Sahel to the Indian Ocean, nations are rising, not against the world, but against the weight of their own history. Africa once fought to break free from colonial rule. Now, it fights to break free from dependency disguised as partnership. The faces have changed, but the struggle remains the same. When leaders fall, when soldiers rise, when citizens march, it is not chaos that defines Africa, but courage. Whether Madagascar joins the AES or not, one truth stands firm. The winds of change are blowing. Nations once divided by fear are now united by purpose. The language of rebellion has become the voice of rebirth. The story of Madagascar is not the end of a crisis. It's the beginning of a conversation about who truly controls Africa's destiny, outsiders with power, or Africans with purpose. And as Madagascar rebuilds, one thing becomes clear. Africa is no longer waiting to be saved. It's learning, slowly, painfully, and bravely, to save itself. And if you want to understand why the old powers are losing their grip on Africa, don't miss our next report. Watch the video on your screen now, where Plo Lumumba exposes why France is falling, and how Africa's new age of resistance has just begun. You've been watching Win Africa, where Africa tells its own story.